When I booted up Botanicula, I expected to spend some hours exploring the microscopic world of bugs in a game that was light in both tone and color, and I was at least partially right. But this game seems to be just as confused as I am about what it was going for as far as tone and subject matter. Botanicula is a point-and-click adventure game where you tell a group of fungi and nuts what to do as they attempt to plant a glowing seed into the ground while preventing a big spider from consuming it. So, the protagonists you are directing around are quite small, and there are bugs, but there's also talking rocks, big-eyed tuba things, stretchy bats, and penguins. It would seem as though the devs really didn't have a filter for what does and does not belong in this game. Now let me take a step back. Botanicula is a point-and-click adventure game, and it adheres very strictly to that control scheme even when it could benefit from having some keyboard controls, at least as an option. It is an adventure game designed for adventure game fans, or so I would guess, because there's no tutorial, nor hints at controls for puzzles that make use of mechanics that only appear in that puzzle and do not appear for the rest of the game. Visually, there is a style in this game that I appreciate. The backgrounds and the protagonists are clean and pleasing to look at, but the way that all the art comes together on the screen seems to intentionally mimic like a scrapbook. Things seem to lay on top of one another and slide rather than attempt to animate as though they were moving in real life. Along with this visual style, this game commits to an unorthodox soundscape. A large section of the game's sound effects are recordings from the human mouth. While there are certain sound effects that are not, there is a lot of people approximating footstep noises with their mouths or going whoosh into microphones to produce sound effects. Some might find this endearing. I don't. I would much rather have actual thuds of feet instead of feeling like there's someone way too close to my ear. That being said, when there is music, particularly when a game-advancing item has been added to your inventory, I find it pleasing and upbeat, as I would hope it would be. But there is more to Botanicula that is out of the ordinary. It seems to have no bounds. I interacted with a genie, I went to space, I broke the rules of the map, I put chickens on treadmills to move a city, all in this game that I thought was going to be about insect/fungus life. This is an adventure game-ass adventure game. There's not a lot of sense attached to what's going on here. Each puzzle works by its own logic, and so do individual rooms in certain cases. And I don't like that. It leads to there being things that exist at random throughout the world that have me putting my hands up and asking why. Why is this room full of penguins? This randomness takes away from the game as a whole. While piloting seeds and fungi around, I wish I was doing more things that it made sense for them to be doing. I'm a huge fan of world building, and while there is certainly a populated world to move around in this game, it doesn't feel consistent. It's more like a Frankenstein's monster, stitched together pieces that come together to make a fully functional adventure game, one that I had a fine time with, mind you, even made me laugh from time to time, but not one that feels like a cohesive whole taking place throughout a single world. The larger areas do carry a consistent tone, but certain rooms within these larger spaces give dramatic shifts in tone that caught me off guard. For example, there's a rather random room with a puppet show that has quite a bit of blood for a game that hardly features any violence, yet alone any blood. There's also this poor fly toward the end of the game with a baby. This fly is clearly not having a good time right now with this kid. It looks exhausted. You get my empathy, buddy. I wish I had a way of interacting with you other than just making that baby cry. There is no English in this game. It sounds like my seedlings are speaking French, but I can't be sure because I don't speak French. This makes it hard to know exactly why or exactly what I'm doing. For example, I have my top bar displaying that I need something with these icons, but why? That's not explained until I get them all. I understand that gathering them will advance the game, but what is my in-world motivation? Why are the seedlings doing it? I often felt as though I was accomplishing tasks for no reason other than just to see the next level because I was unclear on what the product of my actions was going to be. The game offered me content, but I was not drawn into completing that content as a result. And if I was not intending to do this review, there was a chance I would have fallen off while I was collecting elemental buckets. The puzzles themselves are not always explained well either, and it's not always clear that something is completed. I spent too long, splashing water onto different parts of the floor well after I'd hit the only important spot for progressing. I only moved on after checking a walkthrough to see such. There are also certain puzzles in the game that aren't explained in any way. At one point there's a shooting section where you have to click on your shining seed bro thing to reload, and then hover the mouse over an enemy to shoot a homing projectile. This doesn't make sense. I've never encountered another game that uses this mechanic, therefore this mechanic should have been explained. You know, I get not explaining clicking to move, it's a point-and-click adventure game, but things like that take a while to figure out and it breaks the flow in a frustrating manner. I had the most fun with this game when it was stuck in the insect world that it initially establishes, and it spends the first third of the game there, but the further it got lost from that setting and the grounding, I was more confused than I was interested. There's also the small issue that in this game you run around being bad people. You steal things, you make rockmen cry because they lost at volleyball. Sure, you do help some people, but it's often by stealing things from other people. Look man, I mugged a peanut for a crash helmet, and I feel bad about that. Still. Botanicula doesn't overstay its welcome. It took me 3.5 hours to get through the game. There are more interactions that I could get from some of the critters in the game, and these would lead me to having some cards and maybe another cutesy cutscene, but the game has not inspired me to go back in. I have had my one time through, and that is enough for me. For $10 you might consider picking up Botanicula if you're a fan of the adventure game genre and you are okay with the tropes that genre has established. But, you know, this game came out in 2012, it goes on sale plenty, and for $5 or under, you know, this is a fine game for anybody who develops an interest in it after seeing its excellent trailer, although I wouldn't say this game is for everybody.